This time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them lang logy, now you got them bungalow. Long time got them lang logy, now you got them bungalow. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. This time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time full bucket water, now you got them overhead. Long time full bucket water, now you got them overhead. Long time full bucket water, now you got them overhead. Long time full bucket water, now you got them overhead. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them lang logy, now you got them bungalow. Long time got them lang logy, now you got them bungalow. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad.
Hey fans, it's Karaoke and Oldies Night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata Francis Wakenham, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my X next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
You could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area.
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
Hey, sorry about that. She said 3 men, and I'm looking around and looking for 4 fingers and say, hey, cost of living is so high in Guyana that all Guyanese are complaining. It doesn't matter who they be. They're just complaining. It doesn't matter whether they voted for the coalition, whether they voted for some blind party, whatever it is. But mostly, those guys in the PPP are complaining left, right, and center. And when I say those guys, I mean the ordinary rank and file supporters. Guyana is such a rich country, right? Lots and lots of oil. Lots of oil. In fact, I called a relative of mine earlier today and asked to send something for us in the U.S., right? All of you, Janice, I know you were in Guyana recently. You didn't bring back anything for us. What's happening? Guyana is so rich that the Guyanese who are living in Guyana aren't getting anything. Nothing, not even crumbs, not even cheese roll, not even a piece of cheese roll. Nothing, absolutely nothing. What they do now is Jugdale and Irfaan Ali. They get all these sort of road contracts. They call it roads and infrastructure development, and they're building hotels upon hotels. Check how many hotels in Barbados. Compare the amount of hotels we got in Guyana, and you will understand what's happening in terms of money laundering, in terms of finding ways to wash their money, right? Laundry, washing their monies. I'm not saying all of them are washing their monies and building hotels, but take a look at what's happening. Take a look at who's getting the big contracts to do roads. Somebody told me earlier that it's so much noise outside, and the roads that they're building, supposedly building, are this thick. It's not tick, tick, tick. It's this thick. And so that is where the corruption is. Billions upon billions of dollars, they're stealing. You know what I mean? That is why next elections, listen to Auntie Shanta. Or Data, sir.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata, Francis Vietnam, and since 1960, and I always place my ex next to the cop. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
One vote, they will lose by data. You guys gotta go. This is the most corrupt regime in South America. Corrupt and brutal regime. They're stealing your monies, billions upon billions of dollars, right? I mean, I don't think there's anybody here who is gonna disagree with me. Nobody. If somebody disagrees with me, something wrong with them. Janice, you're the chief police right now. I give you that authority. You're the chief police. And John is just a constable tonight. So you're the chief police. Keep an eye on what's going on. They got Sergeant Brenda. Well, they have a lot of Brendas here. Brenda Ballers, Brenda Braithwaite, Brenda Casey. Holy smoke, these Brendas. Dip on them Brendas, right? Flies and Shakademas. Anyways, good evening to all of you. Leighton Charles is with us this evening. Leighton, how are you? Gosh, I was hoping to see you over in that little house over there, you know. But I hope all is well in Texas. How are all the folks out there in Texas? Anne-Marie Selby, how are you doing? Desiree Emmanuel, Amit Sital, how are you guys doing? In Madja, And speaking of Madhya, let's say a special good evening to all the folks in Madhya. People just left them hanging just like that. A corrupt regime left the people hanging in Madhya just like that. Absolutely, just like that. Terrence Beaton, how are you doing, sir? All of you. Now, even if I don't call your names, Asha, yes, how are you, Asha? Long time no see. Yeah. All right, even if your names are not called, don't get upset. Don't get vexed. And even if you try to comment and there's some reason that you can't comment and you know that you're a regular, don't get vexed. Don't let your bumps raise. You know what I mean? Like certain people, mind you. You know who they are. Eric Williams, how are you doing? All right. Hey, guess what's happening? Lots of things happening in Guyana. Lots and lots of things happening in Guyana. Other than the big hotels, big hotels. Well, people come eat hotel. You go eat hotel. Because sit down in front of hotel and eat, Gavin Caesar. That's what we're going to do. Sit down in front of hotel, I'm going to eat hotel, I'm going to eat fine brick roads, and all these things. Cost of living going up. These vagabonds in the PPP regime are borrowing monies, taking loans from this bank, that bank, getting kickbacks, getting cutbacks, all sort of things they're doing. But you know what? The ordinary Guyanese aren't getting anything. They're not getting crumbs. Nothing. Look, a country like Guyana, so rich, and they love to jump on the mountain top, on top of Freedom House, and they like to open their mouth and bawl. Oh, things are progressing in Guyana. It has never been like that before. Lies, lies, lies. Things, they're right. Things have never been like this before because people, even with the $1 billion and the economy that's supposed to be the richest and all these things, guess what? People are punishing. Imagine Guyana Power and Light, hundreds of millions of dollars, your tax dollars, and they can't get it right or right. Right. They can't get it right. Every single day, blockouts upon blockouts upon blockouts. I called some friends out in Guyana today. Guess what? Blockouts. They can't even see to answer the phone. Blockouts. They're charging their phones to listen to their favorite nightly programs, not just this, but they have others, ding-a-ling-a-ling, and others, right, that they watch, and which is good because at least they're not being fed propaganda. They like the shows that give them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Guess who is going to be popping in for a few minutes? Elson Low. Elson Low is going to be with us. He's the youngster that advises the opposition, well, the PNCR, leader of the opposition, and some financial matters. So he's going to be with us. He's going to be popping in for a few minutes. And so before we get to that, let me just thank Lemon. Lemon is back on the job after being suspended for 2 weeks. We missed a microphone, was missing in the studio. And so we kind of saw him on camera, but it's okay. He's back. He admitted stealing the microphone, so he's back with us. All right, let me see some of your comments here. Somebody, Shondell Long. Shondell Long is saying, every night is blockout upon blockout upon blockout upon blockout. That is so true. Debbie Collins, how are you doing? Let me see. Carrie White. Carrie White is saying, Mark, long time. Don't come here and talk no business now, Carrie White, but long time. You know it's been a long time for real, Carrie. How are you doing? All right. I can't really remember Carrie White. But Carrie, I'll do some research to see who Carrie White is. Carrie, how are you doing, though? But guess what? Guess what? Guyana, as rich as they claim that it is, guess what's happening? Hey, how many of you remember this? I remember as a youngster in the quarantine years ago, gosh, it makes me feel a little oldish. Years ago, this is what we used to use. This was right next to the netting, and you light it and you fall asleep. Hey, Guyanese are really brave people, eh? Brenda Braithwaite, Neville Seatal, known as Civic. Guyanese got to really be brave people. Denise Adams, at least you know something, girl. Come at the front of the class, right? So, no, on a serious note, mosquito coil, somebody, first of all, you drink out the Guinness, you knock it out, you leave nothing back for the mosquitoes, and this is what? People fall asleep with these mosquito coils. We were brave back then. But now with the $1 billion that we're supposed to have in the country, billions upon billions of dollars, and under the corrupt PPP regime, they just can't get it right. Mosquito coil, blockouts, all manner of things. If I had my way, I'll be selling mosquito coils in Guyana right now. I'll be selling those flambeau lamps and all manner of things because the PPP can't get it right because they're thieving the money. They're stealing the money. I heard, I don't know how true it is, Jack Deere get a big bank account in China. I'm giving you the globe there, mind you. Get your minds out of the gutter, guys. The globe. He has a big bank account, we were told, mind you, in China. Again, we don't know how accurate that is, mind you. But Jack Deere has to come out and talk about that big bank account he allegedly has in China. And speaking of bank account and all manner of things, people are hopping into Guyana. Not so long ago, you heard that this guy, Mike Pompeo, flew into Guyana to meet with Catfish, Irfaan Ali. God in heaven knows what they spoke about. As you know, Mike Pompeo, the former U.S. Secretary of State, he had a lot to say. A man who I believe does not believe in democracy. I'm not the one who's saying it. His own words.
Mr. Secretary.
Hi.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. All right, we're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a minute afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of
Give me a break. Biden won the elections. He's talking about a second term for Trump swearing in, and you want to talk about democracy? Well, he was former director of the CIA too as well, right? So, and he visited Guyana. He was there in Guyana, right? Had this secret meeting with Irfaan Ali. But guess what? Another director, this one has more credibility, more democratic by far, decency and so forth. He was there in Guyana today. CIA chief William Burns. William Burns, of course, he has a history, 32 years as a diplomat. So he understands what's going on. From 2011 to 2015, guess what? He was Deputy U.S. Secretary of State. And after that, because to facilitate the swearing in of Hillary Clinton, I believe. Yes, Hillary Clinton. He served as Secretary of State for 1 day. And so CIA chief William Burns stopped by in Guyana today. You know, he was in Argentina, a busy guy. He was heading over to Doha. He's heading over to Qatari, and all over he is heading. He is stopping. I'm sorry, I got stopping Argentina all over. So he was in Guyana, guys. And while he was in Guyana, the question is, I wonder what he whispered to Irfaan Ali. I wonder what were some of the things discussed. Noticed, mind you, before we get on to Chief Elson Low is with us. Lemon, wait a minute. Lemon is back on the job just tonight. Wait a minute, Lemon. We'll bring Mr. Low shortly. But take a look at Irfaan Ali's face. Facial expressions. Sometimes I like to read facial expressions, right? He doesn't look too happy. Do not be fooled, guys. Irfaan Ali doesn't look too happy. And for the CIA director to visit the head of state, to talk quietly with him, and on top of that, to leave out a vagabond by the name of Bharat Jack Deere and maybe other vagabonds, and only whisper to Irfaan Ali, well, something, look out for a few more days. Who knows what happened? But look at this big crew. Look at this big crew there. Okay. Okay, look at some of the U.S. Embassy staffers. Look at Mark Phillips, he was there. The Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, Hippity Lupi. Ben is there, Anil Nandalal is there, and the acting commissioner of police is there. But no, Barajagdale. Barajagdale probably wasn't welcome there, and that's not a good sign for the PPP. Watch out for the internal fighting gonna become external fighting shortly. Something is not regular with the PPP. And it shows that a lot of PPP supporters, a lot of PPP officials do not want Jack Dale around the party. They feel that he is bad news. But before that now, let us get to some good news. Mr. Elson Low is with us. Sorry to keep you waiting there, sir. I notice you have that big globe at the back of you there. Spin it, let's see if we're going to see China. Maybe we'll see, who knows. Your microphone, sir. Some people think that Elson Low doesn't have a sense of humor. Of course he has a sense of humor. He was spinning that globe until it landed on China, not Qatari. But your microphone, Elson. Good night and welcome to Straight Up.
Good night. I hope you're hearing me. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now, loud and clear. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I found your segment there on the blackout situation quite entertaining. I was actually just looking at some comments Guyanese are leaving on GPL's page now that there's been a spate of blackouts again. I think today some people said they had as many as 4 blackouts over the course of the day, which is
if you can stop for a moment, 1 second, please, Mr. Low. Let me check with the audience. Something is wrong with your it appears, mind you. I'm not sure if it's at my end, but hey guys, tell us if you're hearing Mr. Low, you're hearing me, or what is happening if it's at Mr. Low's end. I'm going to look at some of your
Well, I think Mark's just running over some technical difficulties that we might be having. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. As I was just telling him, though, the blackout situation is extremely severe in Guyana, which is really tragic. But, I wanted to give Guyanese a sense of why this is happening and what's really leading to some of the additional blackouts that we seem to be happening beyond what even some people would normally complain about, which is what we've seen year in and year out. Of course, some blackouts are due to government not maintaining the distribution and transmission system well. Other blackouts are due to random things like a truck hitting a post. But what we are seem to be seeing in Guyana right now, in addition, is blackouts due to a shortage of power generation. That is to say, there aren't enough generator sets to meet the demand in the country. Now, what is to me the most damning about the PPP here is that they spent $27 million US on new generators only a couple of months ago, and they said that those generators would be up and ready to go by Christmas. Man, we gone way past Christmas. We also raised the opposition raised this in a press conference a couple of weeks ago. And we raised it because we saw individual people, and I even spoke with someone a small business owner who was complaining bitterly about the blackouts. And I said I'd look into it. So we actually reached out and were able to get some information regarding what is going on with GPL. And it came to our attention that there's seems to be some issues with the generators, and that they're scrambling to fix those generators. Now, that to me makes sense, given that we're way beyond the time the government said the generators would be in place. And I can't imagine that they're installing for all these months. That doesn't make any sense to me. So it has to be that there's a problem with the generators and they're desperately trying to fix them. Now, we first of all said Don't just get a small set of generators, get an additional 50 megawatts of capacity as a redundancy, as a backup. That, of course, would have been perfect in this environment where you have a problem with some of the generators that you ordered. But the government didn't listen to us. The second thing is, why is the government buying second-hand generators, used generators? That was a red flag right from the start. And so, as a result, perhaps of buying these used generators and not checking them correctly, the government has now got to fix the generators before they can even be used. The vice president said by the end of this month, but I don't know, it might be never at the rate they're going.
Yeah, at least to give them a little credit, guys. Come on, they never said which Christmas those generators are going
Ah,
to be ready for.
there you go.
And do you guys know who are the whether there's a middleman that is providing these generators to them, and who is that middleman?
I believe the generators were purchased from the Dominican Republic, but I'm not sure as to whether who is the exact company. But I think it is information that is available. What I would say though is we expressed concern at the time about the purchase of the generators, but the government, said, "Oh, no problem. We're gonna buy these generators. Everything will be fine." Obviously, it's still a problem. Now, one of the other things though I want to entertain your viewers with, I know that the blackout situation may not be funny if you have blackout all day today, but sometimes we gotta laugh at these things, even if it is sad laughter. Uh, the government, even with the purchase of these generators, will have about 204 megawatts of capacity total. The expected demand the GPL has put out in their projections, the expected demand this year is 210 megawatts. So even after the purchase of these second-hand additional generators, which are themselves faulty, you're still behind the overall amount of power generation required by the country. And so, even if those generators are working smoothly, by the time they come online, we will still be in a deficit where we're not going to have enough power generation capacity to meet the country's needs. Which is again why we said get an additional 50 megawatts of redundancy backup capacity going forward. But that's not been the case. So, while I would love to be able to tell people that the blackouts will ease up, that the blackouts will be reduced as time goes on, I don't have any grounds upon which to say that.
One of the things, Elson, and good night to all those who are now joining us and those who are in Georgetown, South Georgetown, Aubrey Barker Road, and all those places out there, and other parts of Georgetown and East Bank and East Coast. They're experiencing blackouts right now. It's really, really sad. And the corruption is rampant every day. Under the coalition, we saw an improvement, of course, better situation with the lights coming out of GPL. They managed the money better. But at GPL right now, it's corruption upon corruption upon corruption. Are you guys keeping an eye on the corruption there at GPL and the spending of taxpayers' monies?
What I would say is we keep a close eye on whether taxpayers are getting value for money. And where we don't think they're getting value for money is where you would, of course, be suspicious of corruption. We have said that we have no tolerance for that kind of thing in Guyana, and we will put in place measures to ensure that you're not seeing that when in office. Even today, I spoke about the comments that the UN made about the Public Procurement Commission, and Minister Teixeira saying that the Public Procurement Commission doesn't have enough staff to be able to produce reports and monitor procurement and whatnot. We believe that it is absurd, absolutely absurd, for the minister to be saying that the Public Procurement Commission doesn't have appropriate staff, doesn't have enough staff, when the government could easily just provide them the staff. They could have provided them the staff the entire time the commission has been set up. So I don't see that as an excuse at all. And in fact, we'll go in the opposite direction. We said today at the press conference that if you just look at community roads that the government intends to build this year, which is about $73 billion in community roads, just roads in and out of villages. If you just employ people to check those roads to ensure that they meet the specifications, you can easily cut out 10% of corruption. That 10% of corruption is enough to pay 1,000 Guyanese a salary of $600,000 a month. To us, that is low-hanging fruit. And when in office, that is exactly what we will do. We will hire thousands and thousands of people to help us to cut out that kind of corruption. And of course, we will also be providing high paying jobs. So we'll have better quality roads as well as high paying jobs for Guyanese. That to me is the way this must be approached rather than pretending that nothing can be done.
You know, Elson, I have this tendency to, when political parties are in the opposition, they promise every single thing, everything got to be rosy and so forth. The PPP has promised so many different things. They're not fulfilling the promises. But what I do know, in 2015, when the coalition ran, they made a lot of promises. But even under the circumstances, they were able to keep the promises. And this is why I'm certain that once there's a coalition government again, to root these bandits out of office next elections, that coalition, that new government, will fulfill at least most of their promises. And I mentioned not fulfilling the promises. This corrupt regime spoke about free education or free tuition at the university level. Thus far, nothing at all. 50,000 jobs. Thus far, nothing at all. What's your take on those broken promises, Mr. Slow or Low? Sorry.
Well, I want to make another point. I think that should help Guyanese to really understand that the coalition is particularly, I think, in a good position to fulfill a lot of these promises. First of all, being that when you've got oil revenues available to you, we didn't have oil revenues available to us before, and we got a lot done. But also,
if you stick a pin, please, you are absolutely correct. It wasn't oil revenue. The PPP was sabotaging the country, all manner of things they were doing. And without oil revenue, look at what the coalition did. Just all, and I agree with you, sir. Continue.
Yeah, well, even if you look at just this year's budget, that this year's national budget is as large as all the coalition's budgets added together, if you can imagine that. So therefore, you should have expected to see years and years worth of progress, years and years worth of public servant salary increases and all of that in this budget, but you haven't seen anything to that effect. And progress in many other areas. But also, you know, the PNC at least has made a deliberate effort to find funding that does not rely on corruption, and in the way that the PPP is happy to accept funding from anybody and engage in all manner of mischief. And so we don't have to satisfy those vested interests that would stop you from being able to deal with corruption. And so as a result, we're in a position to be able to address, first of all, corruption, but second of all, people's real needs, because we have resources freed up to deal with that. That's one thing that I would say about the direction of travel. The other thing I would say is, it to me is such a slap in the face that the PPP has drawn out the process of making the University of Guyana free to the point that it is only really in the election year itself, if at all, that they're going to be making the University of Guyana free. Now, folks, the University of Guyana, it only takes $6 billion to make the University of Guyana free. They could have done that from the first year. That is not even 1% of the national budget. It's not even 1% of the money spent last year. And still they couldn't find that money. They need to just come out and say they don't want it to be a free university and done, because it seems to me that that's the truth. It's not even a percent. Goodness me. So from that perspective, it's clear that they don't have any interest in that. The other thing that they talked about is the 50,000 jobs. Now, the part-time job program, as the leader of the opposition has frequently pointed out, that's just an admission of failure. The fact that they had to end up putting forward a part-time program where they employ tens of thousands, I think there's nearly 15,000 people last time I checked, for that part-time job program. Of course, we want people to be able to access resources, but we've said that we want people to get training. So instead of just, really working a dead-end job, because I think $40,000 to $50,000 a month is not going to be able to ever sustain you. You should be getting $50,000 a month to train, to study, so that you can eventually get a job that's paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars. That to me is pretty straightforward. Sadly, the PPP is not interested in really improving people's lives in that way. I just demonstrated to you how we will be able to hire 1,000 people and pay them $600,000 a month easily by tackling some of the management of our infrastructure projects. Is the PPP talking about anything like that? No. Why? Not because there's money available. It's because they're not interested in hiring people and paying them competitive, internationally competitive wages. They're not interested in paying people wages that are commensurate with the size of the budget and the growth of the economy. Rather, they want to keep all the resources for the friends, family, and favorites and themselves, and they want to see, they don't care about the average Guyanese. So those part-time workers, we will ensure that they're in training programs, get as much or more money, and ensure that we have high-paying jobs available for people, not just punishment work.
The other thing, a point of correction, that the PPP, you said that the PPP is not interested in creating jobs or, hiring people. I tend to have a different take on that, because every day you see scores upon scores of people coming through the airport, and you hear that they're bringing in foreign workers into Guyana. They want to bring nurses into Guyana. They want to bring teachers into Guyana and other workers in the hundreds, probably thousands, but they are not employing their own people at home right there in Guyana. In Linden, they cannot say what job they have created for the people. In Ituni, no jobs. In Kokwani, no jobs. In Lethem, no jobs. In Bartica, no jobs, especially for young people. Berbice is even worse. All you're getting is a bunch of scandals in Berbice and smuggling chicken and all these sort of things. And some top official, we're hearing allegations, mind you, and their family members out on the quarantine, smuggling chicken, smuggling stuff. It's got to stop, one way or the other. And you guys got to go out and ensure that you vote next elections. Go out in your numbers. Back to this blockout situation. I remember not so long ago, a couple of us and others, we were in front of GPL protesting. We're not seeing anybody going in front of GPL demanding better treatment, demanding good services. They're not getting that, and they're not doing that. We're seeing mostly protesting on Facebook. Oh, we get blackout now. Oh, we get blackout now. Why aren't people going out into the streets and protest and say, look, we deserve better. Give us better.
Well, Mark, I recently did a couple of videos where I went to two different GPL locations and explained to people what was going on and why they should be so annoyed. So happy to be out in the street in that regard. But, it is, to me, we're living in a climate of real fear in Guyana. You will have heard the vice president say recently that they're going to deal with people who are opposing them, whatever it is that means. I also issued a challenge
in the bloodstream. I guess you were probably at QC then.
I remember those days as well.
I know you remember that. You stopped me from going in the gate one day. I was late with Ryan. Hey, you got to let go. Yeah, come on, get out of here, man. Right,
Yeah,
but
I suppose that sounds like me.
that's okay, Elson. But those were brutal days. Blood spreading all over, running all over the country as a result of Jack Deere and the PPP. Those were crucial times, really bad times compared to now. Not because that little idiotic individual Jack Deere got to Babu Jan and say he's going to deal with political opponents. Who is Jack Deere? Let him deal with, he can't deal with everybody. He's just a little pussycat. But go ahead. Sorry, I had to.
I completely understand you, and I understand where you're coming from, given your own circumstances and history. What I would say is that we in Guyana must not encourage that type of talk from Jagdeo, and there is no place for that in Guyanese society. We want to have a society where people feel comfortable expressing their views, a society where people feel that they will not be discriminated against or targeted. And sadly, that's the opposite of what we're seeing. And that's the opposite of what that kind of language is conveying. I issued a challenge myself to Jagdeo at one of our press conferences where I said, stop asking is who, because that is something that alarms people and makes them not want to come out publicly, but rather to resist you, to resist you nonetheless. Of course, we saw today, I saw it reported that he was saying, who is it that made these reports to the UN? Which organizations? Who? That kind of talk.
Who said that? Who said
That's
that?
Jagdeo at his press conference.
Are you serious? He
Yeah,
actually said that?
He wants to know who made these reports to UN Human Rights Commission. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter who, deal with the issues that were raised. But I suppose if the issues that are raised are whether or not you took a bribe from Sue, then you wouldn't want to deal with those issues now, would you?
Yeah, he wouldn't want to deal with the issue. 214 million US dollars still missing, unaccounted for. He wouldn't want to deal with Sue. He wouldn't want us to go back to the Skeldon Sugar Factory. $200 million. He wouldn't want us to go back and talk about the fiber optic cable that's supposed to be coming from Brazil, run through all through Sue's Dyke Linden Highway. Went to waste, billions of dollars. What about the hydro project, the Amila Falls, and so forth?
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Jack Dale is I don't know what sort of an economist is. Let's not go there, please. Wasteful. But what's the mood like of the people on the ground with all these things happening in Guyana? What's the mood, sir?
I would say two things. I think the first thing, which is really important, is that I think Guyanese have come to a point where they fully recognize that there is money available. We have got a budget that's in excess of $1 trillion. So clearly the government is spending money is available. But there's this frustration that money is not being spent on the average Guyanese. And so the cost of living crisis is being ignored, completely ignored. And at the same time, you've got the government spending huge amounts of money, which is also because they're ignoring the cost of living crisis, leading to more inflation and sending the price of food and other goods up more than it needed to be going up. And so I think really you're in an environment of growing frustration, where people are happy to see the back of the PVP. And I think that some of that frustration is what you've seen play out over the course of the teacher strike and over the course of the broadness of that strike, which stretched right across Guyana. And the cost of living crisis is particularly acute, particularly difficult in areas outside of Georgetown, because they often will have higher transportation costs for things like food. So to me, that gives, I think, a good sense, gives those looking at things a good sense that Guyanese have had enough, and that many people are desperate for some change and desperate for an improvement in their life. It's shocking to me that governments all over the world, the cost of living crisis is one of the main things, if not the main thing, that they're fighting, that they're dealing with, that they're talking about. But in Guyana, government claims that it has the lowest inflation rate in the entire Caribbean, which is just not true according to IMF statistics. Government claims that there's 2% inflation, which is basically no inflation. This is really a tragedy.
Saturday, 45 minutes after 9 o'clock, blackout all over Guyana. People in South, people on the East Bank, people on the East Coast, people in Georgetown there. We've got to really do more than just praying for Guyana, because this corrupt PPP regime, it's just not working out. And people, regardless of their political affiliation, ethnicity, religious persuasion, it doesn't really matter. People are fed up of the corrupt PPP regime. And Mr. Elson Low spoke about this earlier. And this is what Jack Dale said at his so-called, if you want to call it a press conference. He is concerned at UN Human Rights Committee. And this is what he's concerned about. False narratives. He wants the names of the individual. What is he going to do? Pull a waddle on people? Is he going to pull a crummy wing on people? Is he going to pull a Saturday saw on people? Why is it so important? And who this thug, this vagabond, believes that he can threaten? Guyanese, do not be fooled. How dangerous is this, Mr. Elson Low? I know you touched on it briefly earlier.
Yeah, well, it's dangerous on two levels. First of all, we don't want an environment where people are discriminated against, attacked, persecuted. That is, as we said today, that's a totalitarian state, an authoritarian state, something that you might see in a communist country or, a country where there is no democracy at all. And to me, this is a sign that democracy in Guyana has deteriorated to the point that the people are really afraid of this type of thing. The second thing I would say is it is not enough to just duck and hide from issues. We've got to understand that there's a consequence to not dealing with issues. As an example, one of the reasons I think the UN brought up asset recovery, you may recall I worked in asset recovery while in Guyana here when I first moved back to the country.
Wait, I have my view about that asset recovery stuff. You guys didn't do sufficient there at all, but I'm
Well,
glad
one of the
that,
things I'd
that
point out
experience.
is one of the things
Yeah.
I'd point out is that having in place that type of agency allowed us to fulfill our UN treaty obligations because we are bound by UN treaty to have
Yeah,
such a.
but people wanted action, and this is not to knock at you, Mr. Lowe, but that agency, people should have been brought to justice and prosecuted. People like Jack Day and so forth, those corrupt officials in the previous PPP administration.
Well,
Those
Mark,
people
I get your frustration, but one of the things that we always try to clarify is that asset recovery is not criminal procedures and prosecutions and so on. It's about the proceeds of crime, and the reason that the UN is saying that we must have such things in place, which is why they grilled Gail Teixeira over it, is that you cannot have people engaging in corrupt acts and hiding that the money that they stole from the people either of Guyana or even people of other countries, and therefore depriving the average citizen of their patrimony, of their national wealth. Now, of course, if you're a government that is looking to steal, is looking to deprive the people of their national wealth, you'll look to not have asset recovery and you'll stash things. And so, as a result, the government is now in violation of the United Nations Treaty, which is a binding treaty, United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And that's why the UN brought this up to them. That to me is just a typical example of the PvP destroying institutions and hoping that their lawlessness will carry them all the way. And of course, the UN is not going to stand for lawlessness, and so they grilled Gail Teixeira over that particular issue.
and
But
not
they
only
grilled
grilled,
her over many issues.
it showed her weakness,
Many issues.
lots of weaknesses. Gail Teixeira, an embarrassment not just to the PPP, but an embarrassment to Guyana. What are two things that you took away from the many lies that she spoke at that committee? Two things.
Well, what I took away from it is that there is, first of all, the government has no interest in dealing seriously with corruption whatsoever. That is as plain as daylight, I would say. And the other thing I would say is that it is clear that there's no real efforts for good governance that the government is looking to take, because we saw lots of questioning around the inclusion of civil society. We saw lots of questions around engaging with Guyanese more broadly. And we saw the government have no particular interest in any of the direct approaches, direct policies, and strategies that would be necessary to engage people. We have said from the opposition perspective, we want to engage with civil society. We want to facilitate such engagements. And we'll hire people, first of all, from civil society to carry out studies and to inform policies. But second of all, we believe that engagement doesn't just happen just like that. You need to have staff in place to facilitate such engagements, which is how it happens all over the world. And so MPs and other city council officials and so on will have access to staff who will help to facilitate engagements, will reach out to people across Guyana, gather information, gather feedback, get a sense of what's going on in people's lives and where they need assistance, and feed that information back to the MPs and the city council members and so on so that they can take action on them. That is just an example of a broader philosophy of engagement and of reaching out to people and connecting with people. PvP, just that is antithetical to them. I mean, what it would mean is that Jagdeo would have to give up a lot of his power, his influence, and he's not interested as far as the evidence is demonstrated in relinquishing his power in that way and engaging with people more broadly. We believe that we must be collaborative and cooperative, take a collaborative and cooperative approach to policy making. And going forward, that is what we will advocate and why we've said we're going to hire so many people.
51 minutes after 9 o'clock, Elson Low with us. He's the economic advisor for the leader of the opposition in Guyana, Ori Compton Norton. Cost of living, lots of complaining about that, Elson. Also, I'm concerned, and most Guyanese should be concerned about the unaccounted 214 million US dollars. What's happening, sir?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that first. We've called for in the national budget there to be funds set aside to deal specifically with this issue. The PUP has not said anything at all about the issue for months now. And in fact, they have essentially, I think, been burying this issue. They don't want to deal with it, they've been burying it. This is, of course, concerning because 100 million US is what is expected that Guyanese would be able to receive from this arbitration. But of course, the arbitration requires us to actually put aside money to hire experts, to hire lawyers, to work, to hire whatever the GRA may require in terms of research and so on, to be able to successfully win this arbitration. To me, the fact that you're not seeing anything indicates the government has no interest in reclaiming those funds. In fact, there was an attempt to write off all of the funds or almost all of the funds. So there would only have been $3 million there, of which we would have gotten half, so 1.5 million. That to me signaled that the government's intention was never to recover these funds. And of course, now that the government has the opportunity to recover the funds after all of the public pressure and the pressure from the opposition that would have come, the government is burying it and hoping that it will go away and hoping that no one will notice what goes on with these funds. But of course, we cannot allow that to happen. 100 million US is roughly $100,000 per household. And so really what is happening is, if the government doesn't deal with it, they are robbing the average Guyanese, robbing each Guyanese household of $100,000. That is what's going on. And so when you see these little 25,000 grand here and there, just remember that by merely not doing what it is that they should do, you're losing out on 4 times as much money as that. That to me is awful. And I think it gives you some sense of the inaction on the cost of living issue, because if they don't care about robbing you of $100,000, then they certainly wouldn't care about the suffering that you've been facing due to the cost of living crisis. If you look at the minimum wage and you look at the inflation rate over the last few years, Guyanese have been losing, each Guyanese, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of the year due to reduced purchasing capacity, due to having your dollar going less far, your dollar not going as far. And so it's tens of thousands of dollars that you've been, that it's costed you every single year. And over the course of the year, that will really add up. This is, again, a tragedy. But one of the things we want to make clear is it's not as a tragedy that can't be dealt with. It's a tragedy the government has deliberately decided not to deal with. As an example, we saw the government earn in 2022 an unexpected 300 million US due to the high oil price from the war in Ukraine. We have said they should distribute that money in an equitable way to households across Guyana. That is going to be, I think it's like $300,000 per household. That could easily have helped Guyanese to weather the cost of living crisis to the point that you won't even have really noticed that crisis. $300,000 per household would certainly have been quite a substantial buffer. But the government, again, has no interest in that. So they put aside a few, a 5 billion Guyana dollars, a few dollars here and there. And then they don't even use the money until the end of the year. So you suffer with the cost of living crisis.
So, Mr. Low, as we look at the time here, coming up to wrap up time, cost of living is skyrocket. People are complaining every single day to their loved ones overseas. It's heartbreaking that the PPP is actually destroying the country in every aspect, from the democratic norms, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to assemble, threatening people as Jack Dave did. It must not be looking good for Irfaan Ali, especially since he had that one-on-one talk, courtesy call by the CIA director, Mr. Burns. What is your take on that as we prepare to wrap up, sir, that visit?
Well, it certainly, I think, comes at a time when the PUP is really very vulnerable, and when the PUP looks, to me, to be really in the crosshairs of a lot of international agencies in terms of questionable practices. I think it is the timing of the visit is very interesting, given that we're seeing this UN human rights engagement with the government, and one would hope that it will push the government in the direction of dealing with the issues and dealing with the human rights concerns in Guyana. But of course, that hope to me is beyond naive. I don't think that that will happen at all. And so, really, the only solution for this is not just a visit by a U.S. official, but rather to get the PPP out of office. Mark, they have shown they've had enough time in office that it is clear the way that they intend to govern going forward. It is clear that you can't change the PPP's mind and advocate to get a PPP to deal with issues that you think are important issues. Rather, if you want to change, you have to change the PPP.
Well said. And we'll just end it at that. Jack Dave is indeed an evil spell on Guyana. Be careful, guys. Jack Dave has started at his press conference. It's full moon, and you know what happens when there is full moon. Keep an eye out for the evil ones. I'm not saying full moon means evil stuff. The superstition way in Guyana, full moon. But Jack Dale is just an evil spell in Guyana. He has destroyed the country. Mr. Lowe, take a minute to just close off and offer some sort of hope for the people from an economic standpoint.
Thank you very much, Mark. One of the things I love to remind Guyanese about, because it's so important, and I think that it's really Guyanese are starting to really deeply understand this, is we're not living in an environment in which there aren't resources available. By the end of this year, Guyana will be, Guyana started this year, if you adjust for prices, as the 10th wealthiest country per capita in terms of income, the 10th in the entire world. And by the end of the year, we'll be one of the few, if not the country with the highest per capita income when you look at it adjusting for prices. What does that mean? It means that there's capacity. It means that we have everything that we need to ensure that Guyanese are living an internationally comparable standard of life. It doesn't have to be that Guyanese are always in a difficult position, living a day to day. That is a choice that the government has made. And as a result of this choice, we're seeing really a lot of desperation in this country. The government this year is spending in its national budget as much as the AP and UAFC spent over its entire time in office. And yet, Guyanese are in this position. And yet, Guyanese had 4 blackouts today. Some people had 4 blackouts today. Some people had 2, some people had 3. And yet, some people, even as we speak tonight, are in darkness. 4 years, 5 years, 4 years of budgets in 1 year. And we're still in this position. The only way to get a change here is to change the PPP. They are clear in the mind. They're not particularly interested in what the average person has to say. They believe that they'll just get swept into office again. I don't know how by fairy dust. That's their belief. And so we have to show them that they cannot govern Guyana in this way and that Guyanese deserve better. The resources are there. We just need to make use of them.
Well said, Elson Low. Guyanese deserve better. With a billion-dollar economy, billions of dollars, a rich country, and Guyanese are living probably the same as our Haitian brothers and sisters, all because of the corrupt PPP regime. One other thing I wanted, but for some reason, Lemon didn't do what he had to do. Chinese partner sparks legal showdown in Guyana's Golden Block. What's going on, assuming that you saw this?
Yeah. Essentially, what's happening is that the 2 existing partners of Hess are looking to exercise what they believe they have, which is a right to buy out the rights that Hess has over the profits from the Stabroek block, the business interest really in the Stabroek block. That, I think, however, has underlined the value of the block to these various companies that they're willing to put up such a fight to get a hold of for the interest in the block. But to me, what it shows is that in Guyana, again, there's resources, there's oil. That's 11 billion barrels at least, but there should be far more in that particular block. And so, if foreign multinationals are willing to fight over this oil block, fight over this oil, why wouldn't we, as Guyanese, who are also entitled to proceeds from this oil industry, why would we not be willing to fight over to work towards getting a government in place that will ensure that the oil money reaches us? Now, it is no point in us having resources, and the resources are not reaching. Resources are not being spent on improving the standard of living of Guyanese. That to me is again nightmarish, and this just highlights the fact that we are in a land of abundance, but it feels like scarcity.
You know, the breakup is kind of like a rich divorce where John Hess, you know how much they're getting for that fee for that breakup, right? 1.7 billion US dollars. What a breakup indeed. We'll talk about this some other time. But Mr. Elson Low, thank you so much for your time, and I'm glad that you have your cameras now. You're on the ground. We want to see more of you on the ground talking to the people at Port Morant Market. Take a walk at Skeldon Market. Go Mybe Curie Market. Go Mackenzie Market and listen to what the people are going through and report that back to the opposition leader. Good to see you doing some job work. It's not like you're not working. You're a hard-working guy, but good to see you on the ground. I like people who are on the ground. Thank you so much, Mr. Low. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a good rest of the night.
Thank you, sir. All right, Elson Low there for you guys. My name is Mark Bencha. Be careful of those blockouts. Lots and lots of blockouts in Guyana. I don't know. You guys got to do, those of you on the ground. Some of you like to talk about who live in Guyana and who live in Guyana, and you don't hear and you can't talk. Y'all in Guyana, you know, y'all got to stand up to that corrupt PPP regime. You've got to do that, guys. You can't just sit down and take it like that. Jack, they're threatening people left, right, and center. And what's going on? Somebody give me a ticket. Let me head back to Guyana because, you know, and get a ticket, right? Something is wrong, guys. Do not sit down and take what this little rattlesnake is saying. He is concerned about Human Rights Committee and that APNU, AFC, usual false narratives. The people presented the facts, and this Kunumunu is talking about false narratives. Understand why he behaved like this today, right? It's what time? It's 21st of March. Oh, almost the end of the month. And no wonder why he's behaving like this today at his press conference. But look, according to Gordon Mosley, he says, an irritated Jack Dale. Irritated, which is customary, the usual thing with him. The only time you'll see him smiling is when he gets some money in his pocket and probably some bad deal. Who knows? Where is Sue to tell us about that? But here's what, according to Gordon Mosley. Gordon Mosley says an irritated Vice President Barrett Jack Dale this afternoon declared that the Guyana government wants to see the names of the persons or organizations that made submissions to the United Nations Human Rights Committee in the name of transparency. Oh, this Paku, this Lagu Bagu, this Katahar, this Korhi, this Chamar, this Tereka Bud Nanika Churor Kalandeke, and those who know can end it off there, right? He now wants to talk about transparency. But this is the same crapo who doesn't believe in transparency when it comes to the Guyanese people. He wants now to adapt and say transparency. But why don't you practice that at home, you little knucklehead? Practice transparency to the people of Guyana. Don't do things and hide in secrecy, and the Guyanese people can't know this and they can't know that. They have a commissioner of information getting paid over 1.2 or 1.3 million Guyana dollars per month. Charles Ramson Sr. When you write to him, he's the commissioner of information, a constitutional agency or appointment. But when you write to him for information, he never gives any information. You go to Parliament for information, the opposition members of Parliament hardly get any information. The leader of the opposition wants some sort of information. He doesn't get any information from Bharat Jagdeo, from the corrupt PPP regime, but now they want to stretch their hands all over to the United Nations in the name of transparency. No, Jagdeo, you can't get it both. Oops. I've got to go. Hypocrisy galore by these corrupt individuals in Guyana. And since you're talking about transparency, Barrett Jack here, can you tell the nation if indeed you have an account in the bank somewhere in China and how much you have? Start with transparency. Start right there. In the interest of transparency, can you tell the people how many properties you own in Guyana, lands and all these different things? Transparency. Transparency. That's all. In the interest of transparency, can we get a proper investigation into what Sue said, the allegations that you basically collect money, hundreds of millions of dollars? In the interest of transparency, can we know what's going on? In the interest of transparency, can you tell us about that fuel spill and where that fuel was heading to? In the interest of transparency, we'll finish right there. Don't want to get into your personal life. It's none of my business. But we've got to go. Thank you, Lemon. Thanks to all of our beautiful people who have listened to us this evening. We'll be back tomorrow. Same place, same time. But for now, God bless all of you. Mwah. Pray for Guyana so that this wolf would no longer be the sort of bad wolf that he is. So long, guys. That's not the word I wanted to use, but God bless you.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata, Francis Vietnam, and since 1965, I become a voter. And I always place my ex next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
You ready? Box let me go now. Hear me sing now. Body walk, body walk, body walk, everything. Body walk, truck, body walk, body walk, body walk, everything. Body, me say, body jump, body jump, body jump, everything. Body jump, body jump, body jump, body jump, everything. Hear me sing, so big body can't wear it tight pants. Big body jump.
It's been a long time, it's been a long time, this not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, this not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, this not a before time. Long time got some lang logy, now you got some bungalow. Long time got some lang logy, now you got some bungalow. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, this not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, this not a before time. Long time got some dirty dam, now you got some concrete road. Long time got some dirty dam, now you got some concrete road. Long time got some dirty dam, now you long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them juk juk lam, now you got them electric light. Long time got them juk juk lam, now you got them electric light. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. This time a long time, this time a long time, this na day before time. Long time got them broad broad bottom, now you got them tight tight straight. Long time got them broad broad bottom, now you got them tight tight straight. Long time got them broad broad bottom, now you got them tight tight straight. Long time got them broad broad bottom, now you got them tight tight straight. This time a long time, this time a long time.